Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi TEMURAH of Kimmel. We begin almost halfway down the Amud Gufa, going back to the Machlekes in the Mishnah between Rebbe and the Chachamim regarding a chatas that disappeared and whose owner proceeded to have his kapara. And what happens to the lost chatas? Well, the halacha is it goes lemisa, it's left to die, but there's a difference of opinion. According to Rebbe, the halacha of misa is as long as it was gone by the time the owner even just designated a backup in its stead. Whereas according to the Chachamim, it's only an issue if the chatas was gone by the time the owner actually actualized and proceeded with his kapara using a substitute chatas. Now, that is certainly the simple understanding of the words in the Mishnah. In fact, Tosfos points out that apparently that's reflective of one approach to the machlekes. A very simple approach, according to the shita of Rebbe. If it was gone during the hafrasha of the substitute, that is reason enough for misa. According to Rabbana, it's only an issue if it was gone b'shas the kapara during the atonement process, which the owner achieved by way of a substitute. However, we have two more approaches in understanding this machlekes. We have Rav Huna quoting Rav, and we have Rabbi Abba quoting Rav. We have a different approach to this discussion. It was briefly discussed yesterday and will be a bit more detailed today. Gufa. So let's go back. Omar Rav Huna Marav. He says, let me explain to you the machlekes. Rebbe and the Rabban. Hakoil Moedim all would agree, even the Chachamim. Then the following case, Misa is applied. Sheimashach achas v'ikrivav. The owner didn't bother consulting us. He just went ahead and did his own thing. Chose one of the two. Doesn't matter which one. Whether it's number one, the one that was here and went missing and was recovered, or it's number two, the one that was assigned as a backup, as a substitute. Whichever one he decides to go with, blatantly disregarding the possibility of salvaging and sparing the other one, perhaps by asking us which way, he just takes one and moves on. And he proceeds with the akrava shashniya mesa, the second one. The leftover chatas, whichever one it is, number one or number two, misa is applied. Because, as Rashi explained earlier yesterday, he says, the fact that he disregarded and wasn't really careful, he's clearly indicating that he doesn't care much about the other one, and that is tantamount to a rejection, a pushing away, which disables it, and it goes lemisa. When do we in fact have a discussion on this matter? Meaning, when do we have a machlekes between Rebbe who applies misa and Rabban who do not? Only if he comes to ask us how to proceed. Now the question is, how do we advise him? Rebbe says we don't necessarily seek to salvage the extra chatas. The Rebbe holds we don't proceed with a method that would certainly go ahead and salvage and spare the extra carbon. Meaning, really, there are two options. He could either choose number one, the one that was lost and recovered. So by offering that as a carbon, what he's doing is sparing the backup, number two, which never really went missing. So there's no misa there. But let's say, as Tosfos explains, there is a factor in favor of using number two. He's a better quality carbon. So we go with that. Even at the expense of number one, which will now go lemisa, because he was lost and he was nitcha, and now he's not even using it. So that's what we do. We tell the fellow, go ahead and no problem, use the one that was never lost, meaning number two, as your kapara of avuda mesa. In which case, by circumstance, number one, which was the one that was lost and now recovered and now rejected from use, will have misa applied. So we disregard the actual carbon, we allow it to die. Rabbanan Savri, Rabbanan say no. We must do our utmost to salvage a carbon. Asu takana b'kachu, make a takana, we apply a formula, a system which will spare the carbon from Misa. And therefore we advise him to go a very particular route. We tell him, Lech iskaper ba'abuda. You have a choice in the matter, go ahead and use the last one that you just recovered, in which case, v'shein avutatira. There will not be Misa. Because the one that was never lost, that was just extra now, will be sent to pasture to get a mum, and the money will be forwarded to the Dava, to the public Oila fund. So that is Rav Huna Amarav's approach to the Machlekes. All agree that if he just does his own thing, the one that's left behind goes Lamisa. But otherwise we advise him. How do we advise him? According to Rebbe, we don't really make much of an effort to save the leftover chatas. It goes Lamisa. According to Rabbanan, we insist that he does the Avuda as his kapara, in which case now the She'ein Avuda will be salvaged. Moisev Ramesharshi, I have a question, he says, so you mean according to Rebbe, we don't necessarily make the extra effort for the sake of sparing the carbon, saving the kachim material? But Tani, listen to this price. The pasuk they were speaking about the Kehanim who were consuming the menachos at the Meluim over there. Yoichlu. So Rashi explains that the last word in that pasuk, which is again yoichluha, an extra word, it's extra. So we focus on that word, and it means like this. First, we learn it as yoichlu, that you eat the mincha together with other material, and then we have yoichluha. So we dash in both ways, to eat it on its own, without any other, courses coming along. What's the point of the word yoichlu? To teach us shemoisa achilu mu'eta. Suppose a kain is left with just a small amount of mincha. How do you go about eating it in a royal, proper way, in a non-starving, desperate way? You're meant to eat karbanis in a noble way, in a royal way. So, you join up some other food, kachim food, chulin or even trum. So you have first some other food. This way, by the time you get to the mincha, you're not so desperate, which is a more dignified way of eating it. So there is an advantage to eating al hasayva. Now, yechluha, what is that coming to teach us? Just eat the mincha on its own. Let's say there's an abundance of mincha material. What do? Do we first supplement with other materials so that you're more relaxed by the time you get to the main dish? Or do you forego that factor in order to ensure the full consumption of all the mincha material? There's too much. It's going to be overeating. You're not going to want it. You're going to have to leave it over. And then it's going to become nicer, expired, and become puzzle. So which factor is superior? We do not join up other materials. So we forego the al hasayva factor in order to ensure proper consumption of the mincha. So you're not, overeating the mincha and you don't have any left over. My love, Afilu Rebbe, we're assuming this is even Rebbe's shita, that we're foregoing, the benefit of al hasayva, the al hasayva factor, which is the optimal method of consumption, in order to look after, to spare, to salvage the material. So we see that even according to Rebbe, we make all effort, even at some expense, to ensure the safety of the kachim. This contradicts the earlier Gemara that we don't really do so to save the chatas. Loi Rabbanan, we're going like the Rabbanan, who in fact have that view, but Rebbe would not subscribe to this view. So that's Rav Huna's approach to the machlekes. Rabbi Abba Marav, he has a different approach to the machlekes between Rabbi and Rabban regarding the leftover chatas. I call it moedim mischabesh b'shein avuda, shavuda meisa. According to him, it doesn't really matter if the owner just went ahead and did his own thing or he came for consultation. It doesn't really matter. What really matters is which one he's using for his kapara. Is it the number one, the one that was originally designated, that got lost, that was recovered, or is it the number two that was designated in its stead? Is it the avuda or the shein avuda? Hakol moedim all agree. Even the Rabbanon agree. If he chose to use number two, and now the avuda is the one left behind, shavuda mesa. Misa is applied because he was lost, he was disregarded, he's nitcha. When do we have a machlokes? The meschaper b'avuda. Suppose he chose number one as his kapara. Now we have number two sitting behind. Rabbi Savar, Rabbi holds, doomed. Mafresh leibud. You know why? Because number two was designated as a backup for the lost one. So it shares that same status, that same fate. Mafresh leibud, when you mafresh something to supplement, to make up, to back up, to substitute something that got lost, ki ibud dami. It's as though he got lost too. Meaning, he gets the same status, the same halach. And just like Misa would apply to the lost, it applies to the backup as well, which is not needed. Rabbana Savri, no, doesn't have that status. Lav kibud dami. It's not treated like lost. The fact is, it wasn't lost. So just because he's left behind, there's no Misa, rather it goes out to the pasture, etc. By the way, Taisus explains, if you look at the wording in the Mishnah, it's a little bit tricky to fit in these explanations. And he says that what the Mishnah means is that in general, according to the Chachamim, when will you have a chatas which automatically has misa when it was discovered after kapara? In that case, certainly there's no recourse. But before kapara, well, it depends on the circumstance. Depends what he chose, how he did it. Each opinion according to his approach. Okay, Tana. Now listen to this Mishnah in Maseches Yuma. Hasheni yirat sheyistoiv. So we have the pair of goats. The Sar Lashem, Sar Lazaza. One is a chatas, one is sent off the cliff. And what happened was the Lazazel passed on. He died. So now all we have is the Lashem. So he lost his partner. We bring two more goats. We make the lottery. And we determine again a Lashem and Lazazel. We have an extra Lashem. Hasheni, the leftover one. Yirachi Yistoiv. Send it out to get a mum. Yimacher. People dumb of them dava. And its money is channeled to them dava. Why? Why is it no misa? It's a chatas whose owner achieved kapara elsewhere. Shein chatas tzibur mesa, because there's no misa by chatas tzibur. Let's make a diuk. Let's infer hadiyachat mesa. Apparently, in a similar circumstance, if it will be a privately owned chatas, there is misa. So knowing that, let's proceed. Which one are you actually leaving behind? V'amarav. Rav explains balachayim and nidachet. An animal cannot be rejected from its status. So basically, even though the Lashem, the Sar Lashem of the first pair lost his partner, so he was disabled for the time being, but it doesn't get rejected. You use him. You could use him and you do use him. How did they achieve their kapara? But that one. But the survivor of that pair. B'sheni shebezagrisha mischaper. They use a second of that first pair. So which one is the remnant? Which one is the extra one? V'idach bastra havalik ma'afish leibud. It's the leftover goat from the new pair that's not going to be used. And really, technically, that's called mafresh leibud. It's like you're designating it as a backup for a lost item. Because why are you even doing this whole new pair? Because you lost one. Because the goat died. So you'll be mafresh for the sake of a lost item. Okay, so what's the status of a time of the tzibur? The only reason why it's spared, and there's no misa, because it's a public carbon, there's no misa. Hadiyachat mesa, but if it would be privately owned, it would be misa. So you see that mafresh leibud kibudam, when you set aside something to substitute for a lost chatas, it garners that status. It's considered like a chatas that was lost, And there's Misa. We turned on the base. My love. I feel the Rabbanon, we're assuming this is even the Rabbanon speaking. That's a kasha, because according to the Rabbanon, mafresh liibud is not liibud. Like Rebbe, we're going like Rebbe, who says that mafresh liibud does have the same status as the lost one, and there's Misa. Like Rebbe. Okay, comes another kasha, and this kasha will be on both, on Rav Huna and Rabbi Abba's approach. Tanan, let's go back to our Mishnah, back on the Chav Beis Amud Beis. Hamafish chatas va'avda. Okay, he lost his chatas, vikir acheres tachtea. He proceeded to achieve kapara with a substitute. And then you found the original, Thomas, there is Misa. End quote. Taima, the hikriv. So it's only because he actually was makar of another one in its stead. That's why there's Misa. But otherwise, if it's still pre-kapara, then the other one just goes out to pasture. There's no Misa. And it doesn't sound like it really matters which one he's going to use. And it doesn't really matter whether he asked us for permission or he just did his own thing, which flies in the face of both approaches. It's inconsistent with Rav Huna's approach that differentiates between whether he came or he did his own thing or this one or that one, and Rav Abi as well. It sounds like it's blank check. As long as it's still before kapara, right? You take one and the other one is safe. Loishna mischaper b'avuda. Doesn't matter whether he used the avuda. Loishna mischaper b'shein avuda or the other one. Loishna mashach, whether he did his own thing without asking. Loishna lo mashach, or he came to ask us. To use a tarvayu. That's a kasha on both opinions, which make all these distinctions and differentiations. Says the Gemara, no, not so quick. The Mishnah is just not getting into all these details, so it's just issuing a blanket halacha, a clear-cut halacha. In this case, certainly there's a problem. If it's after kapara, it's over, but before kapara, that really depends on the various variations, as discussed. Most of the psika lektani, the Mishnah is just issuing a clear-cut halacha, which is, clear and agreed upon. It doesn't go into all kinds of unclear and complex variations. Tanan, here comes another kasha, next part of the Mishnah. Hamafresh mois lachatos. Here he had money which disappeared. And he got more money. Then he found the money. So in order to spare any losses, he puts together both monies into one fund and sponsors his chatas, and the leftovers go to Dava, because nothing was rejected, nothing was put away, everything was used in conjunction to purchase so the halach is any leftovers on the Dava. Now it sounds like it's only because he merged them together and jointly sponsored his current time with the mischaper me'elu me'elu. It's only because he got his kapara me'elu me'elu, but let's say he chose one over the other. The second pile of money goes to Yam HaMelech. And again, without any differentiation between, which pile he used, whether the lost one was used, or the backup one, whether he did his own thing or he came to ask us to use the tabai. Again, it's a kasha on both opinions. Once again, the same answer. Most of the psika lektani mission is just issuing a clear case, halacha ktani, mostly psika lektani, but didn't want to get involved in complex variations. But of course. There are other ways to work around this situation to save your money. Amr b'ami. So we spoke about a fellow who had one, lost it, but there's a case where, according to all opinions, there's no loss in the matter. It's called achrayus. If initially he was an extra, conscientious fellow, and he put aside 2 piles of money just in case, 2 animals just in case. It's called achrayus. There's no misa b'achrayus according to most opinions. He set aside 2 funds, 2 piles of money, just in case. In this case, there's no halacha of misa. There's no halacha of Yam HaMelech, mischaper be'echad man. So he picks whichever pile he wants to buy his chatas. V'sheni ipul and the second money goes to Nadava. Alib Daman. Now, we had Rebbe, we had the Rabbanon. Whose track are we following now? Ilay maliba de Rebbe, or going like Rebbe. Well, pshita dipul dava. Of course, the leftover money goes in a dava, rather than being thrown out, being destroyed. Because ad kan like Amar Rebbe ala b'mafresh leibud. Rebbe only applied misa or destruction when we're speaking that he had lost money and he set aside money instead. So that money achieves the same status as the lost if not used. Aval achrayis, but in this case it was initially lachrayis. He initially set aside 2 funds. Even Rebbe agrees there's no halach of destruction or misa. Okay, so perhaps we're going like the Rabbanon. Again, pshitali, of course, Rabbanon are more lenient than Rebbe. They're more limiting in their misa scope. Of course, in this case, diyapul davar, leftover money goes on davar kavachayim. Of course, hashta mafresh leibud amar Rabbanon lav kibudam. Even in a case where one would disappear and he came up with new money or new animal in its stead, we say no, it doesn't share that fate. It's not kibudami. If he's not going to use it, we don't have to destroy it. Lachrayis, boy, of course, if nobody got lost there was money set aside, double money to begin with, that's achrayis. There's no ibud, there's no destruction there. So what's the point of even discussing this halacha? The answer is there's yet a third opinion called Rabbi Shimon, which was discussed in Naftasvav, who says, even in a case of achrayis, imagine you put aside 2 animals, one for his chatas, one for just, to guarantee its success as a backup. The leftover one goes lamisa. So the chiddush is that even according to Rabbi Shimon, who never has the idea of roya, going out to pasture, but when it comes to money, it's different. There's no halacha of destroying the money if, in fact, it was initially set aside as a security money. Well, leave with Rabbi Shimon tzrichlei ma'od atem. Perhaps you would think less Rabbi Shimon nedava. He doesn't hold the nedava at all. So what is an extra animal goes lamisa, an extra money destroyed. Kamashman, the answer is isla nedava. In a case where there is an extra achrayis fund, that money goes on a nedava, which means to have a public, oilas nedava fund. Says the Gemara, why would I even think that he doesn't hold of nedava? We find that Rabbi Shimon himself discusses nedava in a different place. Omimot says, Amr, how could even suggest to less late nedava that Rabbi Shimon, he doesn't hold the nedava, but now we have a Mishnah back on Mesechas Shkolim, Shloish Asa Sheifaras, there are 13 Sheifar configured pushkas, narrow on top and wide on bottom, so the money goes in safely and doesn't come out. Hoyev HaMikdash wasn't the Beis HaMikdash for various purposes, various donation purposes. Vayakos Valein, each one had a label. One was Tiklun Chadatin, where you would throw in the new, Machzas HaShekel of this year. Vatikin, the old one, to make up for last year. Kinin, a fellow had to bring a pair of birds, chatas and oilas, you throw in some money there, and they would buy the chatas and oilah for you and be makriv it. If it goes to oilah, suppose you want to donate a pair of oilas birds, you throw money in that one. Eitzim, the next one was to donate firewood for the mizbeach, ulavaina, incense, v'zablaka pyrus, golden vessels for the Beis HaMikdash. The shisha, and the leftover 6, l'nedava. That's where you put your nedava money. The Tanya on the Bryce explains, what does that mean, nedava money? Everything is nedava. Shisha l'nedava means la'olah haba min ha'moisarais. Moisarais means leftover monies. A fellow had money for a chatas, the price dropped, and he has leftover money. It goes into that coffer. He used to buy public oilah donations. She'ein oilah l'kayhanim. And this is another, side point. What happens to the hides? Typically, the hide of an oilah goes to the kohen. In this case, not. You take the hides and rebuy more korbanos with it. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Amalei Rabbi Nechemia, Amalei Samsei Rabbi Shimon responded, no, the hides go to the kohanim. In this case as well, in Cain, because otherwise, if you're going to take it away from them, Batul Midrash show you Yehuda Kohen, it's going to be inconsistent with Yehuda Kohen's understanding of the pasuk, the Snan, as we have in the Mishnah, Zem Medrash, Darash, Yehuda Kohen. He found a pasuk in support of this view that the oilah that's purchased with this leftover money, the actual flesh goes onto the fire, but the hides go to the kohanim. In fact, we have a pasuk, Asham hu Asham Lashem, and we learned that an Asham is an Asham, but sometimes part of it goes Lashem, part of it to the kohanim, And it's referring to this case, lahavi kol davar haba mimois rachatois va'ashamis, leftover chatas or asham money. What do you do with it? Likach b'dam of oilos. So the money is used to buy a public carbon oila, bashal Hashem, the meat goes Hashem, fire on the mizbeach, v'oir is the hide l'kayanim. Okay, that's a side point, but in any case, clearly Rabbi Shimon is taking part in a conversation regarding moisaros of chatas v'asham used to purchase oilos nedava, oilos tzibur nedava. Alma Isle Nadava Rabbi Shimon. Clearly, Rabbi Shimon subscribes to the concept of leftovers for Nadava. So why bother discussing it now? Gemara again, Israel, there's need to discuss it again because it's a slightly different circumstance. There's room to think. Isle Nadava Rabbi Shimon. When does Rabbi Shimon apply the Nadava system to leftover chatas money? When it's one, say that one pile of money. So you have your fund, the price dropped, you have leftover money. What do you do with it? Linadava aval. Perhaps in our case we have two piles. So, one was going to be used, the other one is not going to be used anymore. Rashi says the other one's now sort of being rejected. It was never really part of the same fund, it was left out. Perhaps in this case, it doesn't deserve going to the Nadava Pushka Kamashma. The point is yes, even according to Rabbi Shimon, who takes a more strict approach regarding the leftover chatas animal, even by achrayis, it's lemisa, but by money, it goes to Nadava according to all opinions. Okay, we'll leave it at that. So we reiterated the machlekes between Rebbe and the Rabbanon regarding the chatas shenis kapar balev acheres, the chatas whose owner achieves a kapara elsewhere. There is misa, and the question is when is there misa, and on which one are we talking about? So actually, we came up with a third sheet of Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon says there's always misa, irrespective of which one he chose. According to the Chachamim, it's a more limited scope. According to Rebbe, it's a broader approach, on which we have two shitas. We have Rav Huna's approach, who says, well, it depends. If he did his own thing, he chose whichever one, then he disregarded the other one. There's misa, according to all shitas. If he comes to ask, then we have a machlekes. Rabbanan say, choose the avuda as your kapara and have the ein avuda spared. Rebbe says, no, we don't advise him, and we don't really send him that way. You can end up doing the she'ein avuda and have the avuda die. According to Rabbi Abba's approach, it's very simple. It just depends which one he's using. If he uses the avuda, the she'ein avuda will have misa according to Rebbe, but not according to Rabbanon, because it was never really lost. But if he uses the ein avuda, which is the one that was lost and recovered, according to all shittas, there is misa. That's two ways to understand the machlekes running the Rabbanon. We had some kashas which were answered, and then we have the halacha of achrayis. So if we initially set aside two for achrayis, so tomorrow we'll discuss the halacha of animals. Today we discuss the halacha regarding monies. The leftover money, according to all shittas, will go to Nadava. All the best to you, and Hatzlacha.